So we will begin with this mimer that begins with the first psukim of our parsha. The first psukim of our parsha begins with the words "Ve'ela shmois bnei Yisrael haboyim Mitzrayim." These are the names of the bnei Yisrael that were coming in to Mitzrayim. Goimer, and then goes on Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Goimer, etc. It's known the examination, the analysis of the one whose yard site is in. This was said on the 25th of Shvat, so it was the day before, the Friday before was the yard site of the Alter Rebbe. For us, the yard site is not going to come until 2 weeks from now. But anyway, so it said the Chav Daled, Chof Daled tapes, in the 24th of Tevis, is the yard site of the Alter Rebbe. So he writes, B'sifrei Torah Oir, in a sefer of Torah Oir, the Mamorim on Bereshis and Shmois, B'divra Maschal Zeh, in the Maimer entitled Ve'ela Shmois Bnei Yisrael Boi Mitzrayim. So the Alter Rebbe asks and repeats actually a question that all Mefarshim asked, the Medrash asks, and so on. The Parshas Vayigash Namar Gamkin Ve'ela Shmois Bnei Yisrael Boi Mitzrayim, and Parshas Vayigash it also says these are the names of the Bnei Yisrael that are coming into Mitzrayim, and therefore Mitzrayim we need to understand. Why is it repeated in the Torah, the idea of the Yidden coming into Mitzrayim? Now, on top of the question of the Alter Rebbe, so his son, the Mittler Rebbe, adds to it. And his son, the Mittler Rebbe, adds to this even more, skip the brackets to the next line. The Yedua that's known, we know the Torah is everlasting, and it speaks to in every time and every generation. The Hain, this means to say, also the idea of arriving into Mitzrayim, coming into Mitzrayim, is to be found in every generation. And the Chain, so too. There's a lesson from this to every single Yid, in every time and in every place. The lesson of this, not just that we are coming to Mitzrayim every generation, but there's a lesson derived from it. The Torah is from the word lesson, so therefore there must be a teaching, a lesson, a directive that we learn from this, that we're saying that the Yidden come into Mitzrayim always. Since Torah is everlasting, and Torah means lesson, therefore we must say that the lesson is an everlasting lesson. Since the Torah is everlasting, moving it's understood, also the specific details of the exile in Mitzrayim is to be found in every generation, not just the general idea of going into Golus, the general idea of Mitzrayim, but all the details. Therefore, also the specific matters that they made their lives bitter, with difficult labor and with bricks, etc., as kol all their work that they made them enslaved in with breaking labor. There's also in all the times all of these type of descriptions of the bitterness of their life, the difficult labor, the types of labor they did, and so on. So the Rebbe goes on a very important point. We know that the purpose of their lives being made bitter by the Egyptians was not for its own sake, heaven forbid, that Hashem wanted the Yidden's life to be bitter, impossible. Rather, it's only for the sake of the redemption that will follow, as the Rebbe will speak a lot about this topic in the Maimer. Like it says, when Hashem assured Yaakov was like, a little bit unsure about following Yosef to Mitzrayim, so Hashem told him, I will descend with you to Egypt. I will raise you up also upwards. Meaning, this means the entire intention of the descent to Mitzrayim, etc. It's only that should be afterwards that I will raise you up, also raise you up. And later in the Maimer, we're going to talk about the double expression of raising, and we're going to talk about that there's a pasuk that says a double lashon of descent. Anyway, second paragraph on the page. Right now, he's going to talk about this. But the idea behind this is, it says in the pasuk, when the brothers spoke about their going to Mitzrayim, it says, Yored Yoradnu, descend, we descended. Sheyesh Nom Beis Yeridus, that there are two descents. And just like in corresponding to the fact that there are two descents to Mitzrayim, so to concerning the redemption, it says, I will raise you up, also raise you, or also raise Beis Aliyas, two ascents. So what are these two descents and two ascents about? In general, Beis Yeridus v'Aliyas Elu, these both of these descents and ascents, they're referring to the redemption from Mitzrayim and the future redemption with Mashiach. Seemingly, what's the connection between the redemption from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, to the future redemption with Mashiach? That we connected one with the other, and we say, that I will raise you up from Mitzrayim, also raise up from the future redemption. It's combined. Obviously, they have an association. So he brings the well-known pasuk about that the Navi compares the future redemption to Mitzrayim. Third paragraph on the page. The idea behind this is, it says in the pasuk, like your days going out of at the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders in Mashiach's times. So what is the simple meaning of the pasuk? The pirush haposhet ba'kasavu, the k'moy should be made says chomer Mitzrayim. How you niflois, just like in the days of your going out of Mitzrayim, there were wonders. In the bedugma lazar and niflois begula asida, and similar to this, I will show you wonders in the future redemption. This is the very simple meaning of the pasuk, that we're going to have. After we went out of Mitzrayim, we celebrated all the amazing feats that took place. The Makis, the Kriyas Yamsuf, etc., etc. So too, when Mashiach comes, there'll be also over-the-top type of miracles. Just like there were wonders and miracles when we went out of Mitzrayim, so too when Mashiach comes, there'll be wonders and miracles as well. That's the simple, plain meaning of what the Navi is saying. But the Zohar adds another nuance to this. The Zohar explains the wonders of the future redemption. Yiyu niflois afilu legabe haniflois shahoyu b'meitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim. When it says that ki meitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu niflois, it means even in comparison to the wonders that you experienced when you went out of Mitzrayim, the wonders of the Geula Sida will also be wondrous. In other words, when you put them side by side, and you'll compare the Makis, you'll compare Kriyas Yamsuf, and compare all the events that happened when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, and then you'll look at what takes place by the Geula, you'll say, wow, it blows it away. It's so overwhelming. It's a wonder even in comparison to those wonders. On the other hand, even though the Zohar says that the future redemption with Mashiach is wondrous even in comparison to the wonders of Mitzrayim, going out of Mitzrayim, but still in all, the fact that we compare the two types of wonders, the wonders of going out of Mitzrayim and the wonders of the future redemption, it's understood. This is an important point that the Rebbe is emphasizing over here. There is a connection between them in the inner content and purpose and idea of the redemption has an inner common denominator, an inner thread that is in the inside of both of them. It's not just that externally they seem the same. This has makis and miracles, this is going to have miracles. This has wonders, that has wonders. That's a result. It's because they have an internal commonality, that's why they have this external association. Because they have this inner association, this inner common thread, what we will be discussing, that's why it comes about that externally now they are similar also in the fact that in the two redemptions there'll be wonders. This is an outcome. This is a result of some inner common denominator that they both share. It's similar to what the Rebbe, for example, talks about gematria, that when two words have the same numerical equivalent, the same gematria, it doesn't mean that it's the numbers that's making them the same. No. There is some inner connection between them. Because there's an inner connection between these two words, that's why it expresses itself even in something as external as the numerical equivalent of the words. The same thing over here. The Geula of Mitzrayim and the Geula with Mashiach has a certain common denominator, a certain inner connection. And because of that, outside, they also manifest that connection as well in being both sharing wonders. And now, the Rebbe is going to say that this is to be found also in, or this is hinted as well in the Maimer of the Torah and the Torah's Chaim of the Mittler Rebbe. So he says in the brackets, the top of the middle of the top paragraph, that's the connection between the whole continuation of the Maimer of the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe. After explaining that the two ascents of that I will raise you up, also raise, is referring to the redemption from Mitzrayim and the future redemption. Then he continues, Mamshech, the Maimer Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe continues and says, behold, it says, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. Why is he bringing in that pasuk? How does that pasuk contribute to the idea that you're saying that there are two aliyahs, an aliyah from Mitzrayim and an aliyah from the present Golus with Mashiach? By saying, so it explains that there's an association between two types of redemptions. That we see they're connected somehow in the fact that they share the same pasuk, I will raise you, I will surely raise. So therefore, how do you explain it? You explain it by saying, wonders of the future have to do with the wonders of Mitzrayim, showing that there's a common thread between them. Now the Rebbe is going to explore what is the inner common thread. What do they share that because of that results in that the wonders are the same, and because that they're in the same pasuk, al chagam oli, and so on. Second paragraph on the second page. The explanation of the connection in the content of the two redemptions of Mitzrayim and the future time is just like in the redemption from Egypt. The intention was not in the redemption itself, heaven forbid. That was not Hashem's intention. Hashem did not want the Golus, like we said before. The Vayimaros Chayeyim and all these things, Chas v'Sholom, to say Hashem wanted that Yidden should suffer. But rather, v'nikudos apnimis, its inner point, its purpose, its goal, hoisa inyan hagula shel achres, is the idea of the redemption that follows the Golus. And what is that? What is the core and main point of the redemption afterwards? Shetachlisahu, that the goal of the redemption is Kabbalas HaTorah, the receiving of the Torah. Like it says, when you take out this nation from Egypt, you will serve Hashem upon this mountain. So we see right away when Moshe Rabbeinu was given the mission of taking the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, what was the mission including? The mission included as well the goal and the purpose of the mission. The goal and the purpose of the mission was to serve the Eibishter on this mountain. And the same thing, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he spoke to Paroi, he communicated this as well. He said, Shalach es ami v'yavduni, send out my nation and they should serve. That Hashem said, send out my nation and they shall serve me. That the purpose of the sending out is to serve me. There was, I remember, during the 70s, there was the free Russian Jewry movement, and they loved having these posters and signs and slogans, Shalach es ami. And I don't remember if the Rebbe said this or other people said this. They're missing the most crucial part. V'yavduni. The purpose of setting the Russian Jews free is that you be able to be free to practice Yiddishkeit. That was the problem in Russia. There was no discrimination against a Jew just because he was a Jew. The problem was with the souls of the Jews. So we see that the idea of going out of Golus in Mitzrayim, the purpose was to serve Hashem. So the purpose of the whole Golus itself was to lead to the Geula, which is about receiving the Torah. Now we're going to find the common thread with the future redemption. Hine, 4 lines into the second paragraph, Kach kol ha-Golus hazeh, this entire Golus of a 2,000-year-long Golus, who could they lizkos legili primis ha-Torah sheyeh to merit the revelation of the inner part of the Torah that will be when Mashiach comes. Just like the Yidden's Golus in Mitzrayim was to enable them and to purify them, like we learned in yesterday's Shiur, to be able to receive the Torah. It was like a purification process, like an iron smelter and so on. The same thing, our long Golus is to enable us to receive a higher level in the Torah, the Pnimius HaTorah. Shal Zeh Nemar, concerning the revelation of the inner part of the Torah, it says, at the beginning of Shir HaShirim, it says, Yashikeini min shikois piu, that he will kiss me from the kisses of his mouth. This is talking about the love between Hashem and the Yidden. And Rashi on Shir HaShirim explains it means that he will reveal to us the secrets and the innermost part of the Torah, the Pnimius HaTorah he will reveal to us. That is what will take place when Mashiach comes. And that is necessary for that beforehand the Golus. So the Rebbe explains, just like the enslavement in Egypt. Israel was to refine the Yidden, like you refine metal, and to purify them and to make them toyer. Why was that necessary? So you should be able to receive the Torah similar to an iron furnace and smelter, that it refines silver from all types of waste product and dross, and the silver remains now pure without any types of foreign materials in it. So that was the function of Mitzrayim, to purify the Yidden to be able to receive the Torah soon after they left Mitzrayim. In a similar vein, through this final exile, we merit the revelation of the inner part of the Torah. And not only do we merit the revelation of the inner part of the Torah, but the inner part of the Torah also becomes internalized. Now, like it says, it says about the Zohar, about the teachings of the Pnimius HaTorah, that from the inner parts of the Torah, they will derive their sustenance, their parnasa. It's in the way of sustenance and food. What is the idea of sustenance and food? It is internalized, it is digested, it becomes part of us. And that is the idea of receiving and gaining and connecting with the inner part of the Torah when Mashiach comes, that it becomes internalized and permeates us like food becomes internalized and permeates us. And even more so, the true parnasa, the true food, the true sustenance is really the Pnimius HaTorah, not the physical food. The inyan zeh amitis haparnasa shekolach misrael. The inner part of the Torah is the true idea of sustenance of every single Yid. Va'ad shenimshach gam ba'regel shaloi, until it even descends and comes down to sustain and give energy and vitality even to his foot. Upoil by hispashtas v'israchvus, it affects an expansion and broadening of it. like it says that delight, shmua toiv tadashin otzim, a pleasant idea, fattens even the bone. Like the Rebbe explained on the previous occasion that year on a Yitzhak Kislev Fabrengen about how the inner part of the Torah sustains the entire being of the Yid even to his feet. And based on this, what we just now explained, that the purpose of the final goals is to bring about the revelation, and that we should be vessels to be able to internalize the inner part of the Torah. This is the explanation of the great length of this final exile. It's incomparably longer than the exile of Mitzrayim. How come? If the exile of Mitzrayim was to refine us to be able to receive the Torah, what's the need of so much more exile? The the reason for this matter is since the ultimate purpose of this final exile, it's to be able to merit through the goals to the revelation of the inner part of the Torah. As opposed to the exile from Egypt, that was to be able to merit the revelation only of the revealed part of the Torah, and therefore, just like the inner part of the Torah, which we said before is hinted in the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, he will kiss me from the kisses of his mouth, is incomparably higher than the level of the revealed part of the Torah. So to the exile, that via the exile and through the exile we arrive at the level of Pnimis HaTorah. It also has to be similar to the Torah that's becoming revealed through it. And since the Torah is incomparable, so the Galus is be'ein arech migalus Mitzrayim. It's incomparable to the exile from Egypt. Shal through the exile of Egypt, bo legili nigla Torah. They only came to the revelation of the revealed part of the Torah. The nigla the Torah bechinas Torah sheba b'agbala. The revealed part of the Torah is a Torah that comes in a limited fashion, and therefore, since it's limited, so the Galus that preceded it is also much less. As opposed to the inner part of the Torah, it's incomparably higher than any type of measure and boundary, and therefore, before we can partake of and truly receive the inner part of the Torah, one needs to have a much greater exile than we had in Mitzrayim. So now the Rebbe is going to ask, what do you mean? But he does not say this is infinite, this is finite. Chas v'sholom, the goals is not going to be infinite. Though this lengthy exile that we're doing now, this latter lengthy exile, is limited in the amount, in its quantity, how many years it is, because obviously there's going to be an end to it. So how is the Golus incomparably worse or greater than the Golus of Mitzrayim? The intention over here is not in the great length of the exile, talking about the great length in time alone, because as far as time is concerned, it's also limited. Rather, when we talk about the length, we're talking about a qualitative length, that qualitatively it's incomparably more difficult with the suffering and the oppressions, and befrat b'chevli Mashiach, especially in the birth pangs of Mashiach, which are likened to chevli leida, the birth pangs of birth of the Yidden, of being born into the Geula. These problems and these afflictions and sufferings, they're incomparable to the suffering that was in the exile from Mitzrayim, and therefore it can come out from it the incomparable revelation of the infinite part of the Torah, the level of the inner part of the Torah, as opposed to the limited part of the Torah, which came on the heels of going out of Mitzrayim. Now the Rebbe says, does this mean that we still need suffering? So the Rebbe says, obviously, chas v'sholom. Ve'ein hakavana, it's not the intention that there has to be problems and suffering and afflictions, etc. But rather, ki im inyanim she'einam masimim l'regulosei shel Yisrael, was nit loit de gewohnheit von Yidden belvad. As long as there's something that's out of the norm, that a Yid is uncomfortable with, that he's not used to, that itself is already considered suffering. This is also considered suffering. Where do we see this? So we see this actually in what the Chazal say on our parsha. Like it's brought down the Gemara on the pasuk, that the Egyptians made the Bnei Yisrael work with parach, very difficult labor. And it says, they had the men do women's work. Though women's work is physically, I'm not going to get into a woman's work is never done and all that stuff, don't get me in trouble. It means usually the loads and the type of labor, it's not as physically difficult to lift and so on as, let's say, working out in the field and so on and so forth. The Isha Tash Koicha, because a woman, she is physically not as strong as a man. So therefore, why is it such a terrible thing, the Gemara explains? If you give men the work of women, they should be enjoying it. Concerning men, this is considered breaking labor, because it's not according to what they are accustomed to. So we see that even in Egypt, what was considered difficult labor meant not the amount of pounds you had to drag around, not the size of the stones you had to carry, but rather difficult labor meant how used to you were or not. So therefore, in the same way, we don't have to go through terrible suffering to be able to earn our way to Mashiach, to be able to be refined enough to receive from Mashiach. It's enough that we have something that's out of our comfort zone that we're not used to. How much more so when it's something that's the lack of comfort and what's used to even one Yid. In other words, here we were switching. We were taking women's work and giving it to men. But for women, it is something that they're used to. But if you give a Yid something that a Yid is not shaykh to at all, because no Yid should be doing it, and therefore, it's considered great suffering. Where do we see such an idea that just because I go out of my comfort zone, it's considered so significant? So the Rebbe brings an amazing thing. So he says, how much more so that we see the story with Nebuchadnezzar, that it says, Nebuchadnezzar got a message from Hashem, and because of that, he walked towards his messenger. He heard that the messenger was coming, so he walked 3 steps for the honor of the Eibishter, in the Eibishter's honor. That's all he did. No great labor, no terrible effort. He went out of his way and he walked 3 steps. Zacha, the Chazal say, he merited lamalchus loy ulebonoi uleben benoi gimel doidos. He merited for himself and for his son and for his grandson, 3 generations he merited that the kingship of Babylonia remained with him. And the way the kingship was really in a kingly fashion, in a way of being a superpower, Moishel Bekipo, Malchus, Betach Sarach Srach was v'chulu, and a kingship and a governance that was in the broadest fashion. The Nebuchadnezzar, Moilch Bekipo Hayon, Nebuchadnezzar was a superpower, he controlled the entire world. So if even Nebuchadnezzar, who was not a great tzaddik, and he was responsible for much suffering from the Yidden, the very fact he went out of his comfort zone and he stepped 3 steps for Hashem, he merited such amazing reward. So how much more so in Elachas when we speak about a single Jew, B'ni b'chayr Yisrael, that the Yid considered my son, my firstborn. You are sons to Hashem your God. The good, that is something that they are able, that they have earned, is incomparable than what Nebuchadnezzar merited, because for Hashem's royal son to go out of their comfort zone is much more valuable by Hashem than what Nebuchadnezzar went out of his comfort zone. Every single Yid, even the most ordinary of the ordinary, could demand from Hashem all good matters spiritually. That's the primary existence of a Yid, his spiritual life. But when he has everything spiritually, the spiritual benefits also express themselves in physical. Is from having everything spiritually beneficial, so then it comes down also in the physical, that they're going to have everything they need, should be in the best way. In all matters of blessing. Then in general, it's about having children and life and health and sustenance in a comfortable manner. In a way that he rules over the world, like Nebuchadnezzar did for 3 generations, because he just went 3 steps. Move on. So therefore, from this we understand the flip side, going back to our topic. Anything that's out of the norm for a Yid, anything that's out of the comfort zone of a Yid, is considered great suffering. And we could say in Egypt it was also a discomfort, but it's different. Before, when they were Mitzrayim, it was before Matan Torah. Since it was before Matan Torah, the mitzvahs that they did was in a way what's called Einay Mitzvah V'Oisa. Someone that's not commanded and does the mitzvahs. When someone's not commanded and does the mitzvahs, it's not as much, it's not as powerful, it's not as great as someone that's commanded and does the mitzvahs. So we are post Matan Torah, we are doing the mitzvahs because we were commanded, so our discomfort, it is so much more powerful because we deserve it even less than the Yid in Mitzrayim. And because of this discomfort, even minor discomforts, and through that, all the stains, even the most minor stains that were remained after all the suffering and tzaras that we went through. So any discomfort that a Yid has, any situation where he goes out of his comfort zone, is enough to remove any type of suffering, any type of negative thing. So now, last paragraph on the 3rd page. All the revelations of the future time when Mashiach comes are dependent on our actions and service throughout the 6,000 years that the world exists. This idea of our avodah is the concept of they made their lives bitter in the spiritual sense. The ba'avodah kasha, the kusha. What's the difficult work? That is talking about kasha is similar to the idea of a question. In other words, what is the discomfort that I'm trying to understand something and there's a question bothering me and disturbing me? B'chaymer, the kal v'chaymer. Chaymer means mortar. But again, Chazal play it off the idea of kal v'chaymer, in English a 40-yordi. In other words, when you learn out something greater from something lesser, if there's something lesser has such and such, or something greater, how much more so? This is a very crucial type of use in Torah study. And what do bricks indicate? It doesn't have to be physical bricks. It could be the spiritual idea that levanim is also from the word lavan, white, cleansing. Libun hilchasa, clarifying the halacha, cleansing and whitening and clarifying the topic. Was matet sich in limud Torah, that he toils, he tires himself out in Torah study, lahoitze halacha brura, to extract a clear halacha idea, ribu shakla v'tari, through much give and take and discussion and so on. But matzav, the machshak meshivani, is in such a state where Hashem said, where we say that Hashem placed me in darkness. Zeh Talmud Bavli. This is going on the Gemara, the Babylonian Gemara, that over there's so many questions and answers, and questions on those answers, and again questions. This is all about the darkness, the spiritual darkness of the mind, and the toil that's necessary to come to the halacha. Until he whitens or vashtois, he cleanses as hakushis v'reminu chulu, all the questions. The reminu is also an Aramaic word for when we bring in a question. Ad halacha me'ira mazira, until the halacha is shining and luminous. The zeu ikir inyan ha'Torah, that's the main idea of Torah, is to come to a conclusion, halacha psuka bruda, a clear derived law. The zeu ma'aso mishnayos shem halacha psuka b'chulu. That is the advantage of Mishnah. Mishnah is a clear halacha. The golus will only become gathered in the merit of the Mishnah. Mishnah doesn't mean just the Shisha Sidra Mishnah, but means Mishnah in a broad sense includes the idea of halacha, because that was the halacha of their day, was Mishnayos. The Gemara brings a pasuk, Shenamar Gam Ki Yisnu Bagoyim Ato Akabtzim. So the Gemara does a play off the word Yisnu. In Yisnu is from the word Tana, the Tana of the Mishnah. Mishnayos in Aramaic is called Masnisan. So we have that when they have Yisnu, when they have the Mishnah, even when they're amongst the nations, I will now gather them. So in the merit of the Mishnayos, in the merit of the halachas, Hashem gathers us out of Golus, because that's the whole idea that we said. We're struggling, we're going through the suffering and the toil of deriving the halacha, like we said before. Now, that's not just the toiling involved in learning, but there's also the toiling and the whitening involved in davening as well. So to the whitening also in the avoid of davening, but Torah's Chaim, let's explain Torah's Chaim, there's also idea of cleansing and purifying my soul. So it's also a matter of a lot of work and toil, which earns us the purification necessary to be able to receive the inner part of the Torah when Mashiach comes. Now, through the idea that we're bitter, meaning we're toiling difficultly, with great difficulty in Torah and davening, Kanal said before, we exchange the suffering of this final golus. In other words, the Rebbe is saying that instead of having physical suffering, we could exchange the physical suffering by investing our energies and our toil in Torah. And when we invest our energy and toil in Torah, so then instead of needing to go through physical suffering, chas v'sholom, so instead Hashem says, okay, you're going through suffering, fine. Let the suffering of toiling and davening, let the suffering of toiling in Torah be the suffering that will earn you and purify you to make you receive the Pnimis HaTorah, and there won't be any need for chas v'sholom, any type of physical suffering. Top of the next page, this is what it says. These are the names of the Bnei Yisrael, through the idea of the names of the Bnei Yisrael. That is what affects the redemption that follows. Having Jewish names brings about the Geula, like the Chazal say. The Inyan Shmais Bnei Yisrael, who the idea of the names of the Jewish people is. Kid Iser Medrash, like it's brought down the Medrash, the Reuven, Shimon, Nachsin, the names of Reuven and Shimon descended into exile. The Reuven and Shimon Salkin, the same names of Reuven and Shimon left exile, went up from exile. Shaloshim was Shemam, they derive from this that the Yidden did not change their names, and because of that, they merited to go out of Golus. Now, in the Sikha we learned yesterday, the Rebbe said, which is more like the simple reading of this Medrash, that even though they might not have been meritorious in other things, but in the merit of not changing their names, that was a merit to take them out of Mitzrayim. Here the Rebbe says it the other way. Here the Rebbe says it that not only did they have, the Rebbe is going to say, not only did they have all the mitzvahs, but even something as minor as not changing their names. I was always surprised when I used to hear rabbis' names. I'm talking about frummer rabbis that have like English names, like Jack Simcha we had in Los Angeles, whatever. It was like so strange to me. Especially a Rav, what's he doing with an English name? Why is there this English name? But whatever it may be, the point is, he could be a very big Rav, but when it comes to the name, it's like versteckt a bissel. So the Rebbe says, not only did they stand in their full strength for the principles of Torah mitzvahs, not only concerning just or even ordinary Torah mitzvahs. In other words, they withstood primary mitzvahs, and they withstood mitzvahs and stood strongly about regular mitzvahs. Even in matters that were just extra careful, to the degree that even when it came to changing their name, they didn't do that. How much more so if they didn't change their name? So for sure, the matters of Torah mitzvahs itself was the way it was supposed to be. Not like we learned in yesterday's sikha. So to in this final goals, that we stand strong even on simple matters. For example, like not changing one's name, etc. And how much more so do we definitely not forgo major aspects of Torah mitzvahs or Torah mitzvahs in general. Second paragraph, the same idea about the names is to be found in Torah. We mentioned this idea also in the Sikha yesterday. Torah is also the idea of names. The entire Torah is considered Hashem's names. We affect the drawing down of these are the names. That all the entire Torah is the names of Hashem. There's 600,000 letters in the Sefer Torah, which are all of these letters combined to make all the Shemus HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the names of Hashem. And amongst these combinations of letters, HaKadosh Yoyser Hashem 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 Chakim, the greatest, the holiest one, is the 7 names that are not allowed to be erased. And amongst these names, of the 7 names, there's his great name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Shem Mefurish. So this is all, how do we reach the names of Hashem through Torah? How do we have this revelation of Hashem through Torah? That's a revelation of the future time that's accomplished through our avodah now. The truth was that the drawing down of his great name already took place in the days of Chanukah. It says that we were praising, giving thanks to your great name. So we already see that the level of the great name, the highest of the 7 names, was already there by the miracle of Chanukah. And not only was it there then, or by in an everlasting manner, that the Chazal say that these candles always go on, they never cease. Because they're even when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, the candles of Chanukah go on. But the difference between what took place in Chanukah and after Chanukah versus what's going to take place in the future redemption is that what the revelation of the drawing down of his great name in Chanukah was in a way that's concealed. And the revelation of his great name will be in Mashiach's times, and that's when it's going to be revealed. Last paragraph on the page. Now he's going to go a little bit deeper Chassidus over here. In the descent itself, there's 2 levels. We said Yoradnu, descend, we descended. Like for example, the first stage, when I think an idea, there's the idea the way it's somewhere in the back of my consciousness. It's not in my front of my mind. So there's a first stage where it descends into my conscious mind, into my thoughts. Well, the mata yoiser, and then there's a second level of descent of an idea. The intellect comes down also in the letters of speech. So too in the avoid of Torah and davening that we spoke about before, there's the toiling in Torah, and there's the toiling in davening. That's the suffering that could replace any other type of suffering, so to be able to merit the future redemption. So there's both of these levels of two types of descent: the descent of thought and the descent of speech. There is the idea of thought in Torah, that a person needs to think and understand and contemplate in depth and figure out deep concepts in Torah. And also there's the speech part of Torah. There's a mitzvah to actually enunciate and say the words of Torah, to verbalize the words of Torah. Like it says about the Torah, Chaim heim lemoitza ehem, that the Torah is life for those that find the Torah. So the Chazal play on the word moitza ehem, and they say v'drosh dorsh lazal, and the Chazal darshan read it as if it said lemoitzi ehem. Lemoitzi ehem befeh. When does the Torah enliven me and give me vitality? When I express it, when I verbalize it with my mouth. So we see there's two aspects of Torah study. There is the deep thought, contemplation of Torah, and then there's descending and bringing the Torah even down into speech. Just like and even further than bring it down to speech, and all of his 248 limbs and organs, if the Torah is set and to be found in all your 248 limbs, so then it is something that's kept. This is similar to the idea that when a Yid learns Torah, he first of all, he doesn't just read the Torah with his eyes. That's the idea of expressing it with the words. And also, we're always moving with the hands, with the fingers, with shaking, with everything, because then the Torah is like a triggering us and permeating us. Our entire body is like being manipulated and moved by the Torah that we're learning. In a similar vein, also by davening, that there's the two levels, the descent of the davening into thought and the descent of davening into speech. Though tefillah is an avoid of the heart, like it's brought down the Gemara. What avoid involves the heart? What's the avoid that's performed in the heart? That's the avoid of davening, because it says, "You shall serve him with all your heart." So the Chazal want to know. I know of service in the Beis Hamikdash. You bring karbanis and so on. What type of service involves the heart? So that's davening. We call mokim, despite the fact that there's the heart, the mind part, the machshava part of davening. There is the further and lower part of davening. There also has to be the speech and pronouncing the letters, the words of davening. Through actually pronouncing it in speech, we remove any types of blockages and obstacles. The Rebbe explains, what does that mean? Similar to what the Tzemach Tzedek explains in Derech Tesecha, in the mitzvah Vidu V'Tshuva, Be'inyan Amir Sachav Beis Oisis Ba'Vidui, saying the 22 letters in Vidui. There is all the letters of the Aleph Beis are incorporated into the Shamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Aleph for Shamnu, Beis, Bagadnu, Gimel, Gazalnu, and so on. And also the Al-Chet on Yom Kippur is also said in the order of the Aleph Beis. What's the point of saying it in the Aleph Beis? So Tzemach Tzedek says that when a person does tshuva, he needs to do two things. He needs to kill off the neshama of the Aveda, of the bad malach that he created through the Aveda, and he needs to kill off the body of the Aveda. When a person regrets what he did wrong, so that kills off the neshama, the chayis, the vitality, the enjoyment. When a person says vidui with words, so that kills off, because it's an action, it kills off the body, especially by going through all the 22 letters. That's what he says over there. But the Rebbe is saying, in a similar vein, pronouncing the words of davening, not just thinking it and feeling it in my heart and bringing it into my thought, but actually expressing it in speech, also removes all things that block me from davening. Final paragraph in the Maimer. That's the idea of the redemption. It's drawing down his great name that becomes revealed when Mashiach comes. In both levels. Just like we have in our mind, we have the letters of thought, so too there is what's the concealed worlds by Hashem. The worlds that are closed off, that don't become revealed. Just like our thought is closed from everybody else, it's only something that I know of my thoughts. Not only does great name come down to concealed worlds, it comes down to revealed worlds. It's similar to our letters of speech, which reveals outward. The drawing down the two levels of the concealed world and the revealed world. It's what we say in davening from world to world, meaning that Hashem comes down from the world of Iskasya to the world of Isgalia. Like explained over there in Torah, through the first Redeemer, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, who will be the final Redeemer soon, mamash.